I've actually listened to a lot of your lives, wives. Um, I find them interesting. And I wanted to kind of add to what you're saying right now, if I could, um, from my personal experience, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
Before,
sure.
um, let's roll time back to 2005. I had an accident, allergic reaction to some medicine that was given to me by a doctor. I was standing outside, and I was on a patio and went into a seizure. I fell face down into field stones that were stacked up around my ex-mother-in-law's house from about 3 foot up in the air. I broke my neck.
Wow.
I was paralyzed from the neck down. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital with everybody standing around me, in my family, just kind of looking at me. And I remember trying to sit up, and I couldn't. And I asked people why I was strapped down to a bed. And my brother looked at me and he told me that I was paralyzed. And I remember screaming and passed out again. And I woke up 3 days later, right before I went into surgery. They ended up fusing from C5 to C7 in my neck. They went in through the front and put a big plate with 6 screws. And after my surgery, my doctor told me that I would never walk again. Even though the surgery was successful in holding my neck in place, that there just wasn't enough. How did he describe it? There wasn't enough nerve movement, so to speak, to, I guess, connection from the mind to the body, as far as my legs and my arms are concerned. And I basically told him he could go F himself. That I had a son at home who was a year and a half old, and that I would run and play with him again. And he's like, "Wow, I just don't see it." And he's like, "You're not healing at all. Nothing with your body is going right." And I remember I had asked one of the nurses one day to put me in a wheelchair so that I could watch videos on the computer at the hospital, because I had this room where some of the patients could go and use computers. And I was sitting in there, and I remember getting really depressed, wondering how I was going to make it through life, because I've always been one of those guys that worked 2 or 3 jobs and supported my family. And you know, I had 4 kids at home because my ex-wife had 3 of her own before we had my son. And I remember I just started bawling and talking to God and asked for help. Told him I'd do whatever he needed me to. And I've always been a religious person. When I was young, I lived a block away from a Southern Baptist church, and I would go every Sunday, even though the rest of my family didn't. And needless to say, about a month to 6 weeks later, I walked out of the hospital.
You can't tell me God isn't good, man. You can't tell me God isn't here. You can't tell me God isn't listening. You can't tell me that God don't exist, because you haven't done anything to call or bring God into your life. And what can people say? People will try to explain God away. You can't explain the God that I serve away, because the God that I serve is why you are even here, to be able to complain about something like they did with Moses. Even though God showed himself by delivering the manna from the sky, and the people ate, their bellies got full. And then when after everything was said and done, and they went up to a little bit further and went into a little bit of a more hardship, now what's wrong with your God? You can't explain nothing like that away, because I'm going to tell you right here and right now, if man was able to do that, man would have been able to do that for everyone. That healing that is spoken of in the Bible, it is life. It is real. And no one I could give two craps can ever explain God away, because I've witnessed too many great things. I've witnessed too many things that would be considered a miracle, that people who don't try to understand or try to get to know want to make God up in their minds, in their own image. And this is where man falls short. We make up God in our own image. We limit God to our own limitations. We constrict God to what we cannot do.
It actually happened a second time.
Mm.
In 2018, my C3 and C4 vertebrae compressed, and it cut all the spinal fluid on my left side. So they had to go back in and fuse from C2 all the way to C6 in the back. And I mean, I have pictures. It's scary when you look at it. But they told me that I'd drag my left side forever, and I'm like, I know, I'll do just like I did last time. 4 days later, I walked out of the hospital.
God is good.
He is. I wear a brace on my left leg now because I have permanent nerve damage. And, you know, the way I look at it is I wake up every morning, I'm able to walk. It's a good day.
Yeah. You see, we don't have to wait till things get better before we show appreciation to what we already know is about to occur. That's what it is to be a believer. We believe in the process of the unfolding of what we were taught on how it happens. Those who reject the teaching are those who have never took the time out to figure it out for themselves. Instead, it's so much easier to just be lazy and assume they already know everything that needs to be known, and everything that they already know is truth. No, what you know is right. Oh, everything you know is right. But I challenge and ask, are they correct?
Well, you know, it like I said, this started in 2005 and then again in 2018. And it's kind of funny because, you know, I wear what's known as a KAFO on my left leg. It stands for knee, ankle, foot orthotic. And it goes from under my foot all the way up to basically my crotch on my left leg. Because I have what's known as drop foot. When the second accident happened, and I just went to get up one morning to go to work and rolled out of bed and hit the floor because I couldn't stand. My whole left side was dead. Like I had no use of it at all. And that was in February. I had just got physical placement on my son again a week before. And then this happened. And I'm just like, I was baffled. But in my head, even though I was going through all this stress, I kept telling myself, God will never give you more than you can handle. It may be a fight, but he'll help you through it. And by the time they got me in for surgery, it was July. And because it took so long for the doctors to figure out what was going on with my neck, it caused permanent nerve damage. And besides everything going on, like I can't use my left hand properly. I can't open it or close it like a normal person would. I have neuropathy all through my right side. So I'm basically a mess. But as I said before, you know, I wake up every morning and I can walk. So I consider it a good day. And it's gotten to the point since this second surgery from wearing this brace, people always come up and they're like, "Oh, you know, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Well, your leg. What happened?" I said, "Well, I broke my neck twice." I said, "But I can walk." And they're always like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so," and I'm like, you know, not to be rude, but I really don't want your pity. I don't need your pity. I appreciate the condolences, but I don't want your pity. I'm a fighter. I don't stop. And when I tell them what happened, they're like, yeah. It got to the point to where my lock screen is actually a picture of the x-ray of my neck, showing all the metal rods and plates in my neck. So that I can just say, well, here, look at this. If you're curious, this is why I wear this brace. And they're like, holy cow. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm here, I'm walking, I'm alive. It's a good day. Plus, I'm almost 50 and look like I'm 35, so that's a plus too.
There you go. That's right. You know what I'm saying? You've been drinking from the fountain of youth.
Yes. As far as your question, something you said earlier, maybe it was either you or Polly. You know, this is the way I look at relationships. You're never going to find a perfect match, ever. You're never going to find somebody that lines up with everything that you like. And that's just how it is, because people are people and people are different and they think differently and they act differently. But the thing about relationships is that if you're able to take that step and give that person a little bit of grace, and you're able to fall in love with that person loves you as much as you love them, they will make the changes necessary to satisfy the relationship. It's not about competing. It's about what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's about communication. You know, it's about trust. I live my life a different way than most people. I live my life by what I call the 4-pillar system. And I believe that every relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship, should have these 4 things in them. And if they don't, then you're guaranteed to have problems. And those 4 things are communication, trust, honesty, and respect. Now, you can give honesty and you can give communication, but trust and respect have to be earned. So, if you look at your relationships that you have in your life, and you take my system and you really think about those people that stand in your circle, it's amazing how it makes you think, well, this person did this, so should they really be there? Because once somebody lies to you, they'll do it again. Once somebody stabs you in the back, they'll do it again. Because people are creatures of habit. And nobody's going to change unless they honestly want to. So,
Love
But
it. Love it. Love it.
that's just me. I came up from nothing. I'm the baby of three. I saw my parents fighting and struggling all my life and started working when I was about 10, mowing lawns and shoveling snow and raking leaves and making money however I could, because that's what I wanted. And I've always been a worker. While now I've been out on disability. Well, I'll be on disability for the rest of my life, but after the second neck injury, it's been a change,
I can
because
imagine.
I can't just go out and work 2 or 3 jobs. But I learned how to budget money, and I've always known how to take care of a home. I was a single father. I took my son from my ex-wife, raised him by myself, all except for 6 years of his life. So I just try and be a positive influence on people. I've always tried to be the guy that makes you smile, and I just stay in my lane.
You see, I trust in my decisions that I make. I trust in my decisions that I make because I trust in the spirit that guides me. And up until now, every choice that I've ever chosen for myself has worked out perfectly for me. In fact, even better than I would have imagined for myself. So anytime I see what one would be consider a flaw or a fault or something along those lines, I recognize and I accept that it is not him, but in fact it is me. And that's when I take a look inside myself to determine what is good, what is true. Because if there was something wrong with him, I would have never chosen to begin with. So that's when I began to change myself. I look inside myself and I recognize where I went wrong. I might have jumped to conclusions prematurely and got upset over something that didn't have to become anything because it wasn't there in the first place. I'm the one that put it there. I'm the one that thought it up. In my mind, it was real. It was so real that I thought it was something for me to talk about when in fact it wasn't. So, knowing this to be truth and my trueness, I never blame him for how I feel because it is not his responsibility to carry the thoughts that I am thinking about. Therefore, I I I apologize.
This is the way that I've always looked at things, is
Hmm.
that um everything that you go through in life, as far as relationships are concerned, all the past relationships, if you look back on your relationships and you think, what happened here, and what happened here, why did we split up, and so on and so forth, each one of those is a lesson. And everybody that was before the one person that you finally end up with, that is your perfect person, the one, we'll say, everybody that came before that person was somehow a lesson to make you the person you are for that person. Um, you know, I'll say this, and this was another kind of hard lesson I learned, but at the same time, it makes me wonder why I never did it before. Um, I'll be 50 in August, and after I got out of my relationship back in 2015-ish, we'll say, I decided I was going to take myself off the market. I needed time to heal and find myself. So I was single for like a year and a half. And in that time, I found myself and actually love what I see when I look in the mirror. And I think that's a problem with a lot of people nowadays is, they're too stuck in their head and they don't open their heart to the good that's out here in the world. And people don't love themselves like they should. And they get caught up in the drama and trying to act tough and social media and all this extra stuff that's really not important. But what people don't realize is that in healing yourself, it takes away all the insecurities. And it gives you strength. And it gives you confidence.
Yes.
And it gives you love.
It gives you everything your beautiful heart can ever desire. So much so that it can even give you death. You see, I find that people try to prove themselves to others and believing to think they are someone who they were never designed, created, or even meant to be, but they don't know better. All they know is that there's something to prove because there's something to gain. And the reason why they are feeling this way is because, well, they think that they are human. And humans make sacrifices. But God knows that we are not human. In fact, we are spirit. A spirit of love, a spirit of faith, and a spirit in good surroundings. Because that spirit knows that everyone is who God chose to become. God uses the vessel so that God can experience life through us. And God can only do so by thinking the thoughts that we think, feeling the feelings that we feel, and doing the things that makes us feel better, even though we know that we shouldn't.
I had kind of a wake-up call. I'll call it a moment of life acceptance. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I've always had a thing for history. And then when I got into high school, I got into drafting and architecture and wanted to be an architect. And I remember one day I Googled my name just to see what would pop up. And there's actually a famous archaeologist with my exact name, about my age, maybe a little older. And there's an architect with my exact name.
Isn't that wild?
And I'm just like, okay, well,
That was close. Well, look, close enough. Huh?
then I'm apparently supposed to be on a different path, so I'll just accept it for what it is and see where life takes me.
I have something for that. But before I do, I want to make sure for myself. How long after did you Google your name did this idea of you becoming an archaeologist begin?
Oh, that was I wanted to be an architect since I was probably 8 years old.
And
And I
what
did,
steps have you taken to move that along?
well, I mean, I've always been into history, and that's the shows that I watch and the books that I read and stuff like that. But um, I think I was in my 30s when I Googled it.
Okay,
But
so here's the creation process right here. You literally got what you want.
right.
Your The idea of becoming, you said archaeologist, right?
Hmm.
The idea came to you, archaeologist, right? And
Yes.
then you began to want, right? You
Yes.
begin to want, to become or to be an archaeologist. The reason why you saw your name when you Googled your name was everything that resembled you was because that's the world you created. However, because you took no action, because you didn't really do anything to make that take place for you, well, God made it so that someone else was given exactly what you just wanted to do. However, they didn't wait for it, they went after it. So it's in other words, it's something that shows me that God was listening to you, but you fell short because life took its course and things happened, and well, you put that idea behind you. And it wasn't until you began to think about it again did it resurface. And in doing so, you Googled your name and seen exactly what you wanted to see for yourself. Your name as an archaeologist. How
Yeah.
cool is that?
I totally agree. I this is and I'm not discrediting your theory, but um this is kind of the way I look at it. Um I'm kind of what you call a jack of all trades, master of none. Okay? I started working on cars when I was about 10 or 12 years old with my dad. My parents taught me how to take care of every aspect of a house and a family and all that stuff ever since I was young. I was actually the good kid. My brother was the partier, and my other brother was the soldier. Um, about the time it was just before my 17th birthday, I started having epileptic seizures. So my dreams of becoming a soldier were thrown out the window. Um, and I accepted that at that time, as I was supposed to go down a different path. So I've always been a worker, as I said before. So I was living life, I was working, making money, taking care of those that I loved, and I've always seemed to gravitate towards um, single mothers for some reason. I mean, as I said, I'm almost 50. Besides my son, I've helped raise 13 other children, 7 boys and 6 girls.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've always seemed to be the type to kind of teach life lessons and show people how to do things. So that's, and I hate to use this because it feels like I just kind of gave up, but I didn't. Um, I just kind of accepted my path for where it was going, kind of as a life teacher, we'll say, because I've always tried to instill, the good things. live life honorably, be respectful. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, be a good person, believe in God, so on and so forth. And some of them accepted it, some of them didn't. I would say more accepted it than didn't. But now I'm a single Pringle. My son is 18. He moved in with his girlfriend. And now I'm just doing me. But my life brought me here. It wasn't a good life. It wasn't an easy life, but it was life. And I learned all those lessons and took them eyes wide open and learned. And I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful that, I was homeless in Colorado in the middle of December. I'm grateful that I had people that could help when I needed it, because those taught me lessons. A lot of people just kind of take it for what it is and try and use people, and, like we were discussing before, want something for nothing. And that's not me. I give more than I get. But yeah.
When you were saying that you gave up, what I heard you say was that instead of going about things your own way, doing the many things you've done, you decided to surrender. You surrendered your will and accept that maybe God wanted you to go a different way, down a different path for yourself, and you accepted that. Did I get it?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
You just said it more eloquently than I did. And
Yeah,
I
I have a
appreciate that.
special way of I have a special way in my hearing, special way of hearing. Yeah, I get that. I do.
One thing that I never regret any decision I make, ever, because the the decisions that I make are what makes me who I am. And I can't speak for anybody else or their way of thinking, but I may do something and it might not turn out the way that I want it to. And I look at that situation and I said, well, apparently this wasn't the way that things were supposed to go. I'm okay with that. You know, I didn't learn until I broke my neck that first time. You know, I was I was younger, apparently, or obviously. I was 33, 32, 33 when I broke my neck my first time. And at that age, when you've got a family, you've got a whole list of stuff that's a mile and a half long that you feel are important, that just have to be taken care of right now, all at the same time. And, I laid in that bed for, we'll say, 6 weeks, trying to teach myself how to walk again and use my arms again. And as I laid there, I realized that all those things that I thought were so important really weren't. And my list went from being 1.5 miles long to being able to fit in the palm of my hand. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people do nowadays, is they overstress themselves on things that matter but don't really matter. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying. I can have said that part perfectly. You said it the best. Yeah, I get it.
And that, you know, I would say probably some of my strongest victories in life, besides obviously my next situations, were learning to love myself for myself and getting rid of all the unwanted stress from that list. Because, you know, I look at life a whole different way now.